There we go. Oops. Alrighty, well, I'm sure this will be a perfectly normal stream. There we go. Oops. I'm sure everything that happens here will be completely, rational. Oh. Actually. Yeah. What's up, everybody? You're so worried about Marathon? Me too, buddy. Me too. I'm more worried about, like, at this point, you know, a lot of my concern, and I know this is always misconstrued because it's the fucking internet, but the reason I care about, like, you know, Destiny and Marathon, like, a lot of that is because I know a lot of, like, genuinely really amazing people that work on them. And, like, people that don't deserve to lose their jobs, and people who don't deserve any of the hate they get on the internet, and just, like, really great, passionate people. And I'm really worried for them, man. Concord trash talkers were onto something this whole time. Even with all of this, it's just not even in the same... It's not even in the same realm. You look soggy? Yeah, I play basketball on Fridays, so I just got out of the shower. So at this point, like, I like the game. Well, you know, obviously, but I think what I'm more worried about is... I'm, like, just really worried about 300 people. You know what I mean? The 300 devs that didn't do this shit. I'm worried for them. I really am. David, thank you for the sub over on Twitch. Marathon has a major uphill battle in the court of public opinion between the lukewarm reception and the alpha, and now this. And Marathon started lower because of Destiny perception as well. Right? Like, Marathon didn't start on even ground. It started in an uphill battle. But once again, like, this isn't... there are like, I like the game. I think it's really promising. There are reasons I really want it to succeed. But that is not, you know, that does not supersede the importance of people getting credited for their work and the community being treated correctly, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that's, like, I'm just worried about people, like, good people. You know what I mean? Did they mention the updates? What do you mean? I have a piece of hair in my throat or some shit. I don't want to go digging it around. Let's drink. Yeah, I'm getting that vibe too, Sai. So, when do you think Bungie stops deserving benefit of the doubt? How do you define benefit of the doubt? I mean, I don't know if you're... I think there's a big difference. If you're talking about how I talk softly about situations, I don't know if you are. There's a big difference between using softer language and waiting until we have more information. Yo, thank you guys for all the primes. I appreciate you guys. There's a big difference between, like, waiting for more information or not taking, like, a super hard stance on something because I'm not, like, a judge. There's a big difference between that and, like, being inherently distrustful of $1 billion company. So you know what I mean? And so, like, a lot of people were mad yesterday. Fucking idiots. Because I was like, if my very first reaction, I get home, I open fucking Twitter, I see the plagiarism accusation, and I tweet out, if this is correct, it sucks, blah, 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 blah. And a lot of people were mad at me for using the word if. Do you guys realize how easy it would be? And I'm not saying this happened, but this is what's going through my mind. Do you know how easy it would be for, like, literally anyone with 5 minutes of Photoshop experience to fake something to make it look like Bungie stole stuff? That's clearly not what happened, but it would be, with a platform my size, it would be so irresponsible for me to see a single tweet or a single thread and immediately jump to conclusions. People do that, and sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong. I think it is a very shitty way to run your platform. I think it's irresponsible, regardless if you end up being right or not. Yeah, they should be doing the Q&A here in 30 minutes, yeah. But it's like, Like, what? Give me an example of the like when you ask Jacob when you think Bungie stops deserving benefit of the doubt. Like, what do you mean? What? Like, give me a specific example of where people are giving them benefit of the doubt. Because, like, people typically don't give companies like that benefit of the doubt. I think there's a difference between being, like, you know, having rational explanations for things or talking to, or talking about, like, things individual devs do or stuff like that versus talking about, like, the intentions of, like, exec suite or leadership or like, $1 billion company. You know what I mean? That's something that Destiny community is really fucking bad at differentiating as well. Reason I would play Marathon would be discovering the secret story elements with puzzles. Closed alpha was dry as fuck for that. Maybe the perception will come back after the game releases. I can't. I just don't even want to talk. Like, I've been very open that I want the game to succeed because I like it. And games like this play better when there's an audience. And I've got a lot of friends and a lot of people I respect working on this game that don't steal shit and do things in a moral way and are just passionate people trying to make a living. And I respect them a lot. And I want them to be successful. Just like we should all want all of our friends to be successful. I would hope. But I can't. This is, at least for me, it doesn't feel appropriate to sit here and be like, oh, public perception shit, this is what Bungie has to do, this is what Bungie... I mean, they fucked up. They fucked up, like, really badly. You know what I mean? Regardless if it was, like, a single employee, regardless if it's hard to catch shit like this, regardless if it was whatever, it doesn't matter. They fucked up really badly. They fucked up, like, really badly. And that's... It doesn't matter. At a company like this, you cannot make mistakes like this. And it's, there will be repercussions for it. And so I just don't feel good sitting here and being like, oh, well, I hope Bungie does this to win people over. Like, people are, like, right to be mad. I would be more worried if people weren't mad about this. The art lead follows her. I don't think, look, and maybe we'll find out different. But, like, once again, I said this yesterday. I actually edited it out of the video I put yesterday as well because I thought I just didn't want to deal with the backlash. But professionals follow people in their field and especially people that work on similar things all the time. I used to have if you go to any of my old streams, on my fucking Firefox tab, I used to have a folder labeled grad school. And that had every paper and patent with similar science to what I do. That is not uncommon. Can I see why it's being perceived as a bad look? Yeah, sure. Like 100%. But to claim that as the sole piece of evidence to say that Joe Cross knew for sure is very silly, in my opinion. I'm not sitting here defending Joe Cross. I'm just saying I like to think that we, you know, not try to destroy someone's career when they could be potentially innocent. Should he have caught this? Yeah, sure, maybe. I don't fucking know how this works. You know what I mean? But it's like, I just don't think that is... I think saying the only reason you believe that is because he followed her and a couple people followed her when she clearly had a similar vibe, and I guarantee she's on mood boards because that's how designers do shit. I think that's very silly. The Q&A was originally about alpha feedback and how they're addressing it. That's the worst possible time for this to happen when they're fighting in courts over the Red War story. The worst part about this is that people actually think that's legit. I mean, come on, dude. If you read any of the stuff, it's so dumb. It is so dumb. You mean maybe the art lead didn't know about this? I have no doubt that the art lead obviously knew about anti-real. I have no doubt that anti-real's work was probably part of, like, used as design inspirations in mood boards. I would be fucking floored if an industry veteran of many decades sat there new assets were being stolen, and especially new assets were being stolen and not altered in any meaningful way. You would have to be the stupidest goddamn industry expert ever. There's just no competent person is going to do that. Even like, I don't know Joseph Cross, I've never met him. I'm not gonna sit here and make any, I think it'd be ridiculous to sit here and make character judgments like that. But just from a pure expertise standpoint, you would have to be so stupid, period. And so for like that reason alone, I think it is unlikely. I am not saying it did not happen, but as a person in a professional field where shit like this can and does happen, this would be the stupidest thing I have ever seen in my entire life. Do you think it's gonna be significant, long-lasting blow to Marathon? It's a hard question to answer too. I honestly don't know. People might forget tomorrow. People might not. I don't really think that is necessarily something I'm concerned about. Just because I think like I said, like there deserves to be fallout and consequences from this. I just don't know. Like, but in the same time, like I don't want 300 to 1,000 people to have their livelihoods affected because of a couple bad actors and the bad practices of the leadership team. He still needs to go. The bug house is up with him. It's been a repeated problem. He has to be the one held accountable. And I could be wrong about this, Sheikah. It is a reoccurring problem within Bungie. And not, you know, this is like not the best defense ever. But I don't think Joseph Cross was ever working on Destiny. Because all of that shit happened in the last 3 years. I don't think he was working on Destiny when any of the other instances happened. And as far as I'm aware, all of the other instances were allegedly external partners as well. So, like, I don't think you can blame the nerf thing on Joe Cross, if that's what you mean by it's a repeated thing. Now, I do think the leadership of Bungie higher need to take a fucking good look in the mirror for shit like this. There's reasons why this stuff happens. This is a systemic culture problem, I would say. But I don't necessarily think the brunt of that. As I see it right now, with what evidence we currently have, I don't think the brunt of that falls on Joseph Cross. But using her work for inspiration is not okay. That's just not how... I mean, people use people's work for inspiration all the time. Like, do you guys remember... If you're my age, you remember the Hunger Games. You remember Insurrection. You remember Maze Runner. You remember... Like, there were 50 fucking movies that were all exactly the same. That shit happens. And, you know, there's maybe moral questions, like how much do you have to change something before it's a unique piece of art or whatever. But like inspiration boards, when I fucking make thumbnails, I sometimes look around for ideas or like, oh, I really like how this person did this or whatever. And I don't copy it one for one, but I'm like, okay. It's the same thing when I'm editing videos. I'm watching a video and I'm like, oh wow, that person did a really powerful editing technique. Let me pull that in, or you know what I mean? And so like, it is not uncommon for people. If I am making a game and I want it to look like X, I'm going to see who else has made things in the general area of X. And I'm gonna kind of, you know, piece things together. That is a lot different than being like, all right, well, I'm taking that aesthetic and that's mine now. You know what I mean? So. I think it's better for Bungie to be absorbed by Sony. They can't remain independent. They literally can't make choices independently. I just, once again, like I'm not comfortable making statements like that. These things, like corporate mergers, always result in layoffs, always. And like, I'm gonna be honest, there need to be repercussions and things need to change. But it is I think it's incredibly ignorant. It's just such a crazy thing to say when you know nothing about the internals to sit here and go, Bungie needs to be absorbed. That needs to happen. Like, to have that much confidence in that statement when you have 10% of the information max is insane. And I'm not comfortable putting myself on that soapbox. I think that's a really dumb hill to die on, personally. It's the same thing with, oh, Bungie should delay the game. Like, maybe they fucking should, maybe they shouldn't. The thing that matters at the end of the day, for like that specific example, is if the developers making the game feel like they need more time to reach a completed product, I hope they get it. That is how you should approach these problems. But I can't sit here in good faith and go like, Bungie needs to be absorbed, because that might be the stupidest thing ever. I have literally no idea. Destiny needs a new engine. That might be the stupidest fucking thing ever. Like, this community has a really, really bad problem with making these ridiculous statements that they have no idea what it means. And maybe they're true, but that doesn't make it any different that you have no idea what's going on. And do you think him following the artist on Twitter makes it look worse? I definitely, yeah, I mean, it doesn't make the situation better, obviously, right? I just don't think it's incriminating. What do you think are the repercussions? Yeah, like, once again, like, I don't fucking know. I don't know. I hope this, like, look, in my company, if someone stole copyright stuff or patents or whatever, you're, first off, you're fucking fired. You're just flat out fired. There are huge restructurings. You have fucking every single goddamn person on the universe has a meeting about it, or it gets brought up in meetings once a fucking week for the next 10 years. And then there's higher repercussions. Usually when shit like this, I mean, I don't know how it's gonna work at a company Bungie's size. My company's much larger. And when fumbles like this happen, there's repercussions in terms of the executives. People retire, people are replaced. There's new vice presidents, things like that. I don't know enough about the internal structure of Bungie to know if that matters at all. I literally have zero idea. I just know what would happen in my experience at my company. What if it happens 4 times though? Yeah, I mean, like I've been very open. It's not acceptable. I don't know how you fix it. I'm not in this sort of company. I'm not in this industry. I don't know what that looks like or what the breaches are. I would argue, well, I think this is now the 5th time or the 6th time. But if it's happened, if 80% of the times it has happened, it's been because of external contractors, maybe hire people and give them an incentive to like do good work. This one was an internal employee. I don't know if it was intentional or if it was they had it on a mood board and it accidentally got brought in. Like, we literally have no idea and we'll probably likely never know the truth, the full truth. But that's an internal discussion that they need to have. But I can't sit here and speak to it. That would be ridiculous for me to sit here and even pretend to know what happens. I have no idea. Wait, I thought I had the order. Hey, Scare, what are your opinions on poor people? Are you fucking mocking chat right now? I think our society should do a better job to help those in need.
Guardian down.
All the previous stuff is small stuff in perspective of the situation. I don't know if because I think I see where people are coming from with that. I actually think the other stuff was not a bigger deal than this, but I think the other stuff is a bigger deal than people made it out to be. Like, I feel like in a lot of those instances, people underreacted. I think, like, a lot of people, like I said, I'm of the belief that the entire aesthetic did not come from this person. Like, clearly, assets were ripped, but, like, this sort of vibe has existed for decades. I know the public narrative is going to be that they stole it from her. Obviously, they did steal things from her, and she needs to be, like I said on Twitter, like, grossly overcompensated for her work. I mean, we were also looking at that website yesterday. Their partners, like, I mean, they clearly have had an aesthetic for a very long time that matches the marathon shit. So, I'm not going to sit here and say, like, oh, they're responsible for taking the entire aesthetic, because I personally I've not seen evidence that makes me think that is entirely true or likely, but the asset design, the clear rips is not okay. Would this have happened under Activision? Yeah, probably. I don't really know how the parent company changes the actions of an individual employee, but I wonder if once the general aesthetic was developed, generative AI was used. No, I bet it was just people like it maybe, man. And we know Chris Barrett was like a huge fucking proponent of generative AI, so potentially. But I feel like they honestly, like, and once again, we'll probably never know the truth, but I think likely what happened is they had like a reference board and someone thought it was like a real asset board or something, but I don't know. I have no idea. This is not a defense. This is just me. I guess you know, if this was an individual person doing this, I really have a hard time believing anyone would be stupid enough just to, but maybe they are. I have no fucking idea. I have no idea. I have no idea. Easy one for Bungie here. Fire the person who sourced the art and pay the actual artist. Supposedly the person who sourced the art has been gone for a while. As for hiring, I think it would be awesome if they paid her, and if she wants a job, hire her. But like real shit, if someone steals my shit, I don't know if I want to work for them unless they pay me like unfairly well. You know what I mean? If I'm in her scenario and they offer me a job, I'm saying double the salary. I don't fucking get it. You know, it's Bellevue. She'd probably be offered 150, 170K, something like that. I'd double it right now. And that's where I'd go. I don't know if that's realistic at all, but I do think, like, clearly they have a problem designing fucking logos and fonts legally, and she's clearly very talented at it, so. What if the artist that is now gone was Barrett? It could be. I'm not gonna, I think that's a dangerous thing. That's almost too easy for Bungie, if you believe that. You know what I mean? Like, oh, it was that guy. Barrett was an art director, and so I think similar to Joe Cross, like I would believe he did a lot of like, you know, initial concepting and mood boarding and stuff. I would find it very hard to believe that either Joe Cross or Chris Barrett like physically does anything that touches the actual game. They're like boss level shit. Managers don't do work like that. They do very high level stuff. How serious is this for them? I think it's pretty serious. Why the fuck is there someone in my fire team? Who is this? Interesting. No, marathon starts in 7 minutes, supposedly. I don't know if Joe Cross is going to be let go for this. I feel like there's going to be a fall person, but I don't know who it is. Maybe there won't be. It's hard because we're so close to it. I don't know if this is like breached, you know, the wider gaming sphere. All right, I'm just waiting for Bungie to go live at this point. There's Dr. Limbo. I'm surprised the marathon stream wasn't in the waiting room status right now. Last time they did one of these, it was a shit show, and it took them 10. Well, they didn't go live until like 5 minutes after, and then it took them like 10 minutes to get it rolling. I've not been happy with how they've done these. That's why, like, I was looking at the Reddit yesterday, and they or 2 days ago, before all this happened, a couple of days ago, and they were like, "Oh, I hope they talk about this." And it's like, guys, it's gonna be fucking. They're gonna like vaguely mention a couple of things, and then play the game. Like, it's not. I really don't like the way these are structured, to be honest. I forgot about the marathon stream. This is going to be awkward as hell. Yo, ZJ, thank you for the sub. Stealing art is bad. True! Preach it. Preach it. Hope you're doing well, Scare. I know most of the community wants best for Destiny, and I think someone just wants Marathon to go away. It's hard, because I still stand by, like, from a pure financial perspective, I think the best thing for Destiny is Marathon doing well. And I think, you know, I like Destiny. I think there's a stream. They would have confirmed there wasn't a stream already. No way they cancel it last minute. That would be such a... If they were going to cancel it, they would have canceled it this morning or last night. Oh, good, Joe. Good. I am really curious how they handle this play, May. I really wish I had a way. You see, like, my mic gets in the way. You see how my face gets dark? That's because my mic gets in the way of my light. But if I move the mic here, it's in the way of the camera. What if I move it up here? No, that's surely I sound bad, right? I'm way too far away from the mic. That sounds really bad, right? Does this sound bad? It's good? This sounds normal? Would they play the game right now? Yeah, there is a... Sounds the same as before? Oh, shit. On Fridays, they do company-wide playtests of Marathon. How worth it is a mic armor if you want to stream more? Pretty worth it. It's pretty worth it. Because I can hit my desk. And you only kind of hear it. I mean, you hear it, but it helps. I'm like a very shaky person, too. You have a mic arm and it pops off. Do you have, like, the threads pop off, Shrimp? Play, plumber tape. Like Teflon tape around the threads and screwed in. I have a Yeti Pro. I think. Yeti Pro, something. One of the Yetis, the higher end ones. That was a beefy pound. That was my nickname in high school. Alright, they live yet? Oh, Bungie! You didn't go to high school? Shit, they're on to me. If it's bad for Bungie to use their artwork, why is it not bad for the Ace of Spades guy to use Bungie's artwork? What? Seems like a double standard. Why is it okay for an individual creator to design their own version of a existing weapon versus a $4 billion company directly stealing one-for-one assets away from a creator? Is that what you're asking? Whose ghost ship is in your fire team? Someone just joined me while I was doing blind well. I don't think you can ever say, hey, this individual creator there's a big difference between a mega corporation and a single person. I think that's pretty obvious, right? It's not their own version, it was the Ace of Spades? No, they definitely designed like the ornament for Ace of Spades, right? Oh, that's a great, see, this is why sometimes I love chat. That's a really great point as well. One was for profit and the other was not. That is also a very good point. Thank you. But it's kind of weird to be like, there's just a... Difference would be the level of exposure. Would be there's a difference between directly copying something one-to-one or someone taking the outline of a gun and making their own ornament. Those are two very different things, first off. If we don't agree on that, we cannot have a serious conversation. One is a billions of dollar company, and one is a single person. One will, even if they're both for profit, one will make $100, and one will make an insane amount of money, or it will be part of a product that makes an insane amount of money. There's absolutely no world or shape or way that you can correlate at all the impacts, the intent, anything between an individual person or artist and a mega corporation. You literally cannot do it. You literally cannot do it. Oh, they're live? Thank you. Where are they live? Bungie, where are you at? All right. Tech issues or no? Oh.
Twitch is live. Twitch is live.
Hi, Twitch. We'll get started in a second.
Not yet.
You know they are nervous as fuck right now. Open the chat.
Is Discord live?
Can you hear the? Oh, let me close Destiny. Can you guys hear it all right? It seems quiet, but I can't really turn it up much. Yeah, this is Joe Cross.
We're live.
This is Joe Cross.
Hi, everybody. How's it going? I'm Joe. In case you don't know me, I'm the game director here on Marathon. To my left here, or potentially on the right on your screen, depending on if it's mirrored, is Joe Cross, everybody's favorite Joe, our director on Marathon. Sitting across from me, who's not on camera, is Andrew Witz, gameplay director, and we're gonna spend some time talking about some stuff today. Our show is a little bit different today. We planned actually to show a lot more stuff, but for a lot of reasons we're about to get into, we decided not to show a bunch of this stuff. But we are going to be discussing a lot about what we learned through Alpha, some of the plans that we're going forward with. But before we get into that, Joe Cross has some sort of topic that he wants to talk to you all about.
Yep. Thanks, Joe. And hey, everyone. I'm Joe Cross, franchise art director of Marathon. Yeah, and wanted to take a minute to talk about some of the events from yesterday.
I do feel for him.
It came to our attention.
This is an insane
and sorry,
spotlight.
I wrote this. I wanted to make sure I get this message right. It came to our attention that an artist who worked on Marathon in the early stages of pre-production took a number of graphic elements from a graphic designer without permission or acknowledgement and placed them on a decal sheet that was then checked in 2020. The decal sheet included icons and text elements. These elements ended up in our alpha build, and there's absolutely no excuse for this oversight, and we are working on and 100% committed to our review process to ensure instances like this don't happen again on Marathon or at Bungie. A few of the things that we've done over the last 24 hours and what we're doing to shore up the review process are as follows. We've reached out to Anti-Real, the artist in question, and followed up to ensure that we do right by this artist. We're auditing all of the previous work
They're not
by
going to
the
talk
artist,
about compensation publicly,
the internal
guys,
artist,
so don't
including the
expect that.
environment decals already in the build, which is part of why we're delaying some of the content we're going to show today. And we're committed to removing anything that is questionably or inappropriately sourced. We're doing a very broad decal audit, and if we locate any other details or elements, we'll make sure that those are eliminated, recreated in-house for sure. Hundreds of artists have worked on this project for years, internally and externally, and we share many influences, including modernism, Swiss typography, 2000s style vector art, cyberpunk, and of course the original Marathon trilogy. Our style is a result of all of those inspirations. And it's also worth noting that none of our external partners who've worked on branding or any part of the visual design of our game were involved with this situation. And lastly, personally, I have a huge amount of respect and admiration for artists working independently, and producing, and making a living doing commercial or fine art. And we've worked with many of them. It's one of my favorite parts of the job is to make those connections and create content and collaborate. And so to that extent, I want to send my personal apology to Anti-Real, whose work was used in this case. And I know how unfair this feels, and we're doing everything we can to make this right with her. Her work is fantastic, and we clearly share mutual appreciation for a specific genre of graphic design, and it's very exciting, and I'm excited to have folded that into our style in general. So thanks for listening, and thanks for your patience.
So yeah, absolutely, and thank you, Joe, for coming in and chatting with us about that. Yeah, if you have any further questions about that, feel free to ask them as we go along. We're probably going to transition now and just talk a little bit about Alpha. And Alpha was a big milestone for us. There was a lot of stuff that went into it. It was always intended to be kind of like a smaller slice of the game. You know,
I'm gonna watch first, and then we
As
can
we're
give
going
our thoughts after.
Feel free to talk, by the way. It was always kind of meant to be a smaller slice of the game. It was always meant to be sort of like testing a little bit more of that like core combat and some of the baseline of the progression systems.
They've
that
all
we
lost
have,
it
you know?
over this. There's
And
no
it
way.
was really great to hear a lot of the feedback, especially from those who played the game, as well as people who witnessed it, you know, and sort of get a sense of where everyone was attaching to certain things and where they didn't see as much meat as they wanted, or things that they didn't like, you know, like at all, or things that they did really like, you know. So there's a wide variety of opinions that sort of came about. A couple of things that we really learned, we really wanted to talk about though. One was the idea of sort of the core of the survival game, you know. I know we talked about this a lot, Wits, the survival game being this like sort of idea of not just running through the environment and trying to survive other people trying to shoot you or the enemies, but like all the different challenges of trying to get out. And we feel like some of the bigger things that we missed on that we know we wanted to see, but we kind of like didn't land super well was like the idea of like resources and the survival economy. If you want to talk a little bit about that, Andrew.
Yeah, like we basically we were dropping like too much ammo, right? Too much heals, too much of everything, and so people were lasting the session for a really long time, and we just didn't really kind of push you out. And so we knew it was going to happen in the build, and so we've been really like focused on how we can improve that and you know, get more hazards in the game. There's a lot more hazards in the current build. There's a lot more evil things we have in the game, as also like and half the guns are in the build, and so the other half are not in the build. So you haven't even seen half of the weapons. I know that there was some folks that thinking that like that was the full library. It is not. It's like half the guns in the game, and they were dropping too often too. Like we were dropping too many guns, too many long shots. I know long shots were a thing.
Long shots were OP, yeah.
We're focusing on that.
Yeah, there was the core of it is ultimately we wanted more stories where there was about like using your resources wisely, and we didn't feel like we put people, or like we didn't put players in a situation where they needed to use their resources wisely, and as a result there weren't enough stories where it was like, oh, I ran out of this thing and I had to figure it out, you know, or I really needed this thing and I was searching around trying to find it. And so we want to build more of those stories moving forward, and so we've been doing a lot of internal iterations. I know even our most recent build we've stripped back a lot of those pieces, and we're seeing some kind of crazy stories come out of that. So so that's a big part of the survival economy. You talked a little bit about like survival challenges, like the idea of like, you know, the environment being a little bit more hazardous to you, you know. Or is there any stuff you want to share there, Andrew? Little bits?
Yeah, we're working
so surprising you don't have a second
we're working on a
camera
bunch of
on
stuff. Working with
I
Lars's
bet
team.
Joe wasn't
Also, Lars is here.
Yeah, Lars, if you want to talk about it too.
Yeah,
feel free
so
to.
Lars, you should talk about all the fun things and all the ways that we're.
How are you trying to kill players, Lars?
Plants now that we have in Martian perimeter. So like sort of going between POIs, you will have to keep a lookout for that. It's for the people who got really used to switching to knife and just going full bore. You're not going to be able to do that any longer in the game. So we're thinking about all those kinds of things, things in the world that make sense. Like the world really does not want you there. You know, there's obviously the UESC. They obviously don't want you there and are trying to stop you.
We missed the important part of the question.
Maybe that's a good segue to, I don't know, Wits, if you want to talk about some of the UESC stuff we've been looking at lately as well.
We definitely know that the UESC when they took a lot of damage, they were like overly reacting, like in hit reacting, and so we're looking at reducing what's called like first sighted, which is like they look at you and they're like you, and then they get into combat with you and then they take some shots. We want them to be more stand their ground robots and hit that killer mecha infantry fantasy that they kind of want to bring. So we're adding we're looking at transitions for going right to combat when they see you. We also noticed that when players were engaging in combat with the AI, they couldn't ever like disengage. They couldn't like kind of be like, okay, like I'm fighting. How do I break line of sight?
It's
and like they kind of
stealth options didn't work as strongly as you wanted to, right? In that way.
Yeah. And so we're looking at that. We're looking at we had there's a few bugs we had where you take out, like you have your knife and you take out like a recruit, and then like the entire POI, the entire like point of interest, like knows exactly where you are and they're running towards you. That's a bug we're working through right now with the team. And so the intent is that that makes noise obviously, and the nearest units like investigate that area versus the entire hornet's nest comes barreling towards your direction. And so we're looking at both increasing their challenge and making them more satisfying to fight, as well as working on their perception and how they kind of find you, right? We want to kind of have disengage options where you can do some damage maybe, and then like you don't need to finish the fight and stand and fight. Is that you actually might want they see you, and there's a moment in time where you can actually like break and kind of get a chance to get away. But we still want them to be threatening versus like you can just run around them, right? They need to really push back.
The sweet spot you're kind of looking for is ultimately that you have more options for how you like divide and conquer and tackle them depending on how you play. But if they do get an advantage on you, each individual unit feels a little bit more threatening to you, right?
Yeah. Like we were there. There's the shield unit, the big shield unit, for example, is if you get first shot advantage on this unit, especially like a precision headshot or something, sometimes they would like hit react, and then they wouldn't kind of do a bunch of their abilities that they kind of have that actually like charge you, and they like kind of tuck behind a shield, and you can't actually shoot them, and they're perfectly tucked behind that shield, and they push you and they want to like do this melee attack. We were noticing that they were getting taken out before they can kind of do that, and so we're looking at their vitality in ways where they don't feel like they're bullet sponges, but that we really require you to play this like marksman game, but also that
I'm gonna have
they
to
challenge you to kind of have different ways to resolve the fight with them. So the team's really kind of digging into kind of like different ways we can kind of get into that and resolve that in a way that feels even more satisfying, but also still make it so that there is those disengage moments where like I'm gonna tackle this fight with this unit, but I'm gonna do this thing. Like there's this hit react they have where they kind of like power down for a second, they kind of wake up. It's like this big hit react if you do a lot of precision damage. We're looking at maybe that if you duck behind a cover or something, that they don't know exactly where you are when they wake up, for example, and so that also plays into kind of more of the like solo viability in terms of like you don't have to like 1v9 all the robots.
No, that totally makes sense. I know another topic that sort of came up when it came to survival game was also the pacing of like sort of every given session, right? Like I know we talked about it internally. It's like there tends to be like a front-loaded tension inside of our runs, where a lot of tension happens in the beginning. There's a lot of brawling, and then it sort of like begins to quiet out as you're sort of playing through the rest of the session. And we wanted to make sure we shake that up a little bit. I know we've talked a little bit about how event pacing folds into that. Lars, I think you and your team have talked a little bit about it, right? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, that was really good. We actually got a lot of good data from the alpha about how event pacing was working, but also just sort of being able to, like, we got lots of good feedback about some of the events and how difficult or not difficult they were, how frequently they appeared or not frequently. And so we're looking at all that data, and we also understand, I think you said a really important thing, which is we also realized that as the session went on, the tension started to drop. Like if you were going after and you had run into a bunch of players, you never know quite exactly how many players are left in the session. But after a certain amount of time, you can guarantee that the PvP population at least is dwindling a bit. And so our challenge that we're looking at right now is how do we increase the world danger over time, and we can handle that in a bunch of different ways, but we've got some pretty neat ideas there. Like is it about complexity or requirements for exfils? Is it about increasing PvE or world resistance? Is it about pacing of the activities? I think the answer is all of the above, and so like we're looking at all of those things right now, and I think we have a lot of good knobs and tuning capabilities there. So I'm pretty I'm pretty bullish on our ability to make that. The longer you stay in the session, the less safe you feel, but also the more you're like, maybe I should get out of here now. So that we want to increase those sort of
Those
thoughts
pressures
from happening too.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense.
Joe, you mentioned
It's a baller tweet.
immersion too.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that definitely touches art. And one of the things we're hoping to show today, or show next week, is some of our fidelity improvements. I know that there were a few very work in progress areas that got a lot of scrutiny in the alpha build, such as like exterior lighting and a perimeter map, and some of our lobby. So art is full steam ahead on a bunch of
Bungie
those
used to have a
improvements.
podcast.
Very excited to show. And then the other side of immersion is kind of the runner stories that we want to tell, and the kind of fictional fantasy. And to that extent, we're working closely with creative direction and the whole team to sort of really dial in some of that fantasy.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of the work that you guys are working on, which has been really cool to see. I mean, everything from we had a bunch of stuff we wanted to show today, but by the way, we decided not to show it because we're still scrubbing all of our assets to make sure that we are being respectful of the situation that Joe talked about.
That's
earlier,
actually
but,
a good move.
There's a lot of things we're doing to try to increase that immersion. I know we've even
That's a
added,
good move.
Like really,
I didn't
like,
think about
details
that,
have sort of helped
but,
to make it a little bit more immersive. Like
It's
the
like if they
blood
delay it, people
that,
think
you know,
they're copping
runners
out
bleed
or
in
whatever.
water,
If they
because that
show
sort of
it,
has trails and indicators of damage that they've
that's
taken.
actually a good move.
I've also seen us like sort of putting more entropy into the world, where we see a little bit, where the idea of the abandoned colony comes a little bit more to life on
For
places
sure,
like Mars.
yeah.
Yeah.
That's good too. That was
Some
one of my
that
main
stuff
complaints. They look too
planned,
clean.
Some of that stuff definitely sort of heightened by the reaction to
Talk
the
about dead
cinematic
bodies.
trailer, which I think, I love. It seemed to go over really well, and sort of making sure that we're sort of following that fantasy, tuning those knobs to whatever extent we can, and just material response, occlusion, lighting, fidelity. That does so much.
Should have made a bingo card.
Yeah.
From a technical sort of base experience point of view.
Even some of the foliage iterations.
Some of that.
Talk about the dead runner bodies.
So
Get rid of the duffel bags.
Yeah, lots of exciting stuff happening under the hood. Team is doing amazing work. Hopefully, we can show it soon next time.
Yeah.
Also the sort
Wait,
of
is your sound bad right now?
lobby
I think
infill
it sounds pretty good.
experience.
Is it low?
We're all excited
That might be
about
on my end.
delivering that
It sounds good to me.
whole sort of comprehensive fictional fantasy of being a badass cyber mercenary, heading down to do dangerous work.
Oh, he might be
Yeah,
quieter.
a lot of the UI that we went
He's
in
quieter.
with was definitely in a temporary state too, and so for us, sort of finding a good way to make that a cohesive experience has been a lot of the effort that we've been on top of recently, right?
We've always, paying off the cyborg fantasy has always been our a goal and a sort of carrot on a stick for us. And that's sort of the fun part, and that's the stuff that really ramps up towards the end.
And there's sort of like two parts to that, right? There's like the cyborgy part, right? Which is like, oh, I'm this robotic entity. And then there's also the part where it's like, you are this mercenary. So you're kind of doing like the thing, which is like, how do I describe it? It's like, you're not like necessarily a good guy. You're not necessarily a bad guy. You're kind of going against the status quo in some degree, right? And so feeling that out a little bit more in terms of the experience, right?
Yeah. The runner fantasy has always been a blue collar fantasy.
Yeah.
For the most part, like you're doing a job. This is dirty work, and you're, taking contracts from sort of nefarious or questionable sources. But so communicating that visual fantasy is very exciting.
That's awesome. Yeah. There's so we've been putting a lot of work into, especially sort of doing some iterations on the visual updates, and also thinking about how we reinforce that fantasy as we're going forward. Another area we've been talking a lot about is crew play. And sort of thinking about the variety of
Since
different
this is
ways
stripped out,
that
I hope they
players
do
play the
another one of
game.
these
We
very
definitely had
soon.
people playing
A week or two. Aliens,
a
thank you
lot
for
of people
this,
playing in solo matchmaking. We had a decent amount of people who played in solo unmatched made, so just basically running around in the world in solo. We had a chunk of people who played in trios, across the different board. And we definitely found that through the feedback and also through a lot of the experiences that were relayed to us inside of the alpha, that the crew matchmade experience just wasn't that great, And so we're looking at a lot of ways to potentially solve that on our side. Some of it is thinking about how each individual can contribute. I know we've been talking a little bit, Andrew, about like the 1vx situation, if you want to talk a little bit about that. It's like how viable you feel like you can turn around a battle and stuff like that.
Yeah, we did some updates in the Alpha Nose Live because we really wanted to move the conversation forward because we felt like we got enough feedback on certain things, and we wanted to actually like take some swings at some problems that we're seeing, and we actually we implemented the shield change we did was actually something that we were getting to for our next milestone. That was in our next our current milestone, I guess, because it's an older build, right?
Yeah.
But like it was in our current milestone. We ported it over ASAP, and so really appreciate runner team and everybody kind of getting that change.
I'm gonna have to rewatch this.
It was a bit of a content change, but we thought it was worth it to actually learn more about time to kill and being able to the power of shields in the combat economy and reducing the overhead of shields. And so like majority of the effective health was in your baseline health pool versus like in your shields. And we had some good changes that kind of came out of that. And so we're keeping that right now in the current build, and we're focusing a lot more on effective time to kill in specific ranges of a weapon. So an example is the overrun. We were kind of like the overrun, the base gun in the game that you kind of start off with. We were kind of we were nervous about like upping the damage on it.
It's
because
the worst gun ever.
This is kind of
I hate
not
it.
the best gun. It's like, well, it's the starter rifle that requires a bunch of attachments to kind of get to its like big power delta, and so it requires all that investment to kind of get to a good spot. We were kind of nervous about like just upping the damage onto it wholesale, and so what we're doing is doing a it's called like a skill floor, skill ceiling audit, which is like how skillful do you to be to have like the gun in its base, like what we call like gray or standard state, which is no attachments, and then what is it like? What is the skill demand at the floor, at the base, effectiveness? What are we asking for players? Like how much aim skill do you need? And then like where are the major flaws in the gun so that like when you're putting attachments,
they're not going to do solo mode. They would already
build
said
crafting,
it.
but also like
I told you they're
flaws
incredibly
in
resistant
terms
to
of, like,
solo
what
only
you
mode.
have a hard time
They do
controlling
not
with the
want to
weapon.
do it.
So we're doing that so that when you feel like you're being taken out, it's like, oh, this person was good. And so when you're lower shields versus higher shields, we want to make sure that your guns are doing damage in the ranges that they're really supposed to. So if you get the drop on somebody, you should be effective, and it shouldn't be like you need certain rarity guns.
There's no way we get a Destiny podcast like
so
this.
So we're working on that a lot. We have, it's a bit spicy right now. There's some SMGs that are a bit hot, in the current build, but like we feel like they're appropriately hot when they're, you're in CQC fights, and so fights resolve in close quarters with a close quarters weapon. The way you expect. LMGs are, kicking way harder, a lot more demand there in terms of the recoil, which is great. We hit some of the snipers. We're actually kind of reevaluating snipers a bit, not like wholesale, like what are snipers, but more kind of like what are they at the base value where they're not like too effective. Because we definitely noticed the long shot had a lot of demand, and like, as expected in this kind of genre, snipers have like a lot of effectiveness in terms of like, they have to kind of feel like they're lower time to kill. So yeah, we're working on making sure that the time to kill is great for the shield differences. So when you're like going up against purple shield and you're a gray shield, you feel like you actually can win, and there's multiple kills per clip that's possible with
it's like it's not guaranteed, but there's a way to win there.
There's a way to win, and that
TTK,
leads to the
is that
skill
what
part.
they're
Like time to kill is always about skill. It's about effectiveness, right? And then like it's also about like window of opportunity as well. And it's kind of like how you triangulate like overall time to kill recipe. And so we're focusing on skill fidelity. We're focusing.
I'm trying to be a little bit more generous
on every single aspect of that triangle.
Because they're not showing gameplay. I bet normally they would have gameplay here.
We have this like how many purple shield kills per clip, which is kind of like a spicy thought. But we're really iterating fast on that in the weapon side.
Cool. That totally makes sense. I know another part of like sort of the crew experience is also like the idea of like, do I have the tools to communicate with my crew, right? Like, I know we had a bunch of challenges with the game voice chat for players inside of the game, and we're definitely looking into that in terms of thinking about how do we make it easier for you to even enable voice chat, or like how do we make that part of your flow so that you can do that. I know we've talked a little bit about ping system, how do we add texture to the ping system to make it easier for you to coordinate with your team if you're not on voice chat? And do you have any thoughts on that one? I know you and your team have touched the ping system, but yeah.
Yeah, ping was in a very baseline state for alpha. Like I would say it was a very it was a very MVP even for alpha state. And we weren't super happy with what kind of where the deficiencies of where it was at. And so we are spending a lot of this milestone really plussing up ping. And we're also looking at things called a communications wheel, which is how can you effectively communicate to teammates? How can you basically ping things in a container? How do you ask for ammo? Stuff like that. So yeah, we're investing a lot on making that really feel intuitive and plussing up the crew play. And then we're also talking about some contract stuff too, Lars, as well about the fabric of contracts between multiple players. I don't know if you can talk a bit about what your team's cooking there.
Yeah, Lars, tell us about contracts.
Yeah, of course. There's a lot of work. It was great seeing people's response to, I think, working along AI, the sort of different factions. And so obviously we feel really happy with at least that first slice that people were seeing in the alpha, and obviously that was it was a small chunk of
More
the content.
contracts at once.
And then sort of looking forward to when you're talking about crew play, how do we lean into that? How do we make that more understandable? How do we sort of surprise and delight players around when they are working with a random match-made player, right? For example, how do we highlight those things? How do we make them understood? How do we reward in ways that make more sense? And how do we make you want to do those things, or feel encouraged to want to do those things and work with, whether it's the people you pre-crew up with or the people you randomly got put in to matchmaking with, or whether you're trying to do it by yourself and, taking on those extra challenges. But I think the interesting part is now figuring out what things were working, what weren't. I'll say from my perspective, and this isn't the team's perspective, this is mine. I think some of those things could have been more challenging, and so looking at that as well, and looking at contracts as there were some that were great where you're hey, cool, I can go download this audio file and now I can go throw myself off a cliff. Not a real example, but you know what I'm saying? to be able to say I did it. I think we want to take a real look at having a mix of things that are more difficult and challenging to do if we think about priority contracts, and then the other types, maybe they're a little bit more sort of backgroundy, doing things. And so if that makes sense. So we're taking a hard look at all of them, and I think we have some really good plans there.
So hey, this is Cosmo. Can y'all hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. We're getting a lot of questions from chat, so I want to jump in. A lot of art questions. I have a question from WigXU. I have a question, a genuine one. Instead of scrubbing so many assets, would it not make more sense to employ the artist, who obviously has nailed the aesthetic you're looking for, and keep the assets as they are?
Sorry, Joe
And
Cross.
I can jump in with the answer unless you want to take it, Cross.
I know Cross he got kicked out of the Discord for some reason. I'm starting his machine, so that we might have a technical issue right now. Do you want to? They're basically asking, wouldn't it be easier just to hire someone to remake the assets?
No. That's not what they're asking.
Do you want me to repeat the question? Apologies.
Yeah, go for it.
Can you repeat it? Yeah. Just so I can relay it to Cross, because Cross can't hear you right now.
No, please get this right. Please get
Instead
this
of
right.
scrubbing so many assets, would it not make more sense to employ the artist, who obviously has nailed the aesthetic?
So the question was, instead of scrubbing all the assets, wouldn't it be easier to employ the artist who made all the assets?
Yeah, I mean, and for what it's worth, we're confident the majority of the assets in that capacity are original, created internally by our internal artists. We would love to work with Anti-Real if that's an opportunity that presents itself. I mean, that's part of what we sort of reached out to communicate. It's at this point, it's a very small sort of set of assets. The decals themselves are the kind of, they're details that are sort of placed on the sides of buildings or crates or something like that. So we absolutely do need to replace them, and we would rule in sort of, any sort of way of doing that, including contracting, collaborating, are working with the artist for sure.
Yeah, and additionally, I think when,
Yeah, it's a great question.
I
just
can't
to
believe
sort of
they're
add on to
speaking
that,
to
additionally,
this.
when we run into situations like this, we also feel like something slipped through our net, and so we have to go back and look at everything just to make sure that nothing else slipped through our net.
I
if
would
that
think
makes
all
sense,
of this they would keep
because
confidential
it caught us
until-
by surprise, and we
because
want
you don't
to
want to
make
like
sure
now
that we're
there. I
doing
feel
the
like
right
there's
diligence to
pressure
ensure it
on
doesn't happen again. So,
anti-real.
either
to be
way,
like,
we're going to scrub all
They
the
offered you a
assets
job. Are you going to
because
take it?
we
And
wanna
I feel
make
like you
sure
don't want
that
to
we
present
didn't
that
miss something else. Yeah.
in a public space like that. That's really surprising to me that they talked about that at all.
Yeah, but that's a
And
good
then,
question.
yeah, we're getting a lot of just like general. We're getting a lot
That
of
wasn't a
general
bullshit answer. They
questions
literally
in
said
the
they're
chat
reaching
cross
out
about
to
like the overall
offer
aesthetic. Do you want to like
a
speak
job.
to that and like kind
That's
of like where you're
that
getting
is
like
a good answer.
the influence?
That's a genuinely really good answer.
Where you're like making the art. You have to relay this question again,
Yeah,
Joe.
I'll relay it. So there's a lot of questions just about
Yeah.
where your inspiration for a lot of this art style and sort of like where that comes from.
Yeah.
And how you think of the art style.
Yeah, I mean, it comes from a lot of sources, a lot of genres. I talked about it a little bit online. Probably a couple years ago. Graphic design is obviously a massive part of our game, and
That's not what they said.
typography
That's
in
like,
general,
did they
that's
not
one of the
literally? Am I
things I'm
deaf?
sort of
They
the
literally
most
said they're
proud of
reaching
in
out
a lot of
and they would
ways
love to
is
work with her, and that was part
sort
of the
the
discussions
idea of
that they're having.
elevating typography and graphic design
Maybe my
to
brain's just
sort of the
cooked, but
forefront
I'm pretty
in a-
sure that's
sort of
what
in
they
a
said.
game or in an industry that
I'll have to go back. Like I said, I have to
typically
rewatch this
doesn't,
entire
I
stream,
think
but I'm
is
pretty sure
sort of
that's
safe to
what they
say.
said.
So in terms of that, the influences range from there's even some DNA shared, I think, with Destiny, with sort of Swiss modernism and that whole that whole genre.
I can't. I'm floored they answered that.
Sans serif typography, all the way up through 2000s, early 90s, which is where I mentioned before. I think there is a lot of overlap there in terms of inspiration with anti-real. The designers are public, vector art, that kind of thing. Just an example of sort of an exciting part of graphic design history that feels connected to, sort of naturally connected to games. The studio that sort of drove a lot of that worked very famously on a game called Wipeout, in a very early PlayStation game, which is a big influence for us. And then all the way up to sort of current trends, which may or may not be definable genres. There's sort of a deconstructed kind of minimalism. Anti-design is another genre that I've heard it referred to. And this is just specifically thinking about typography and sort of the sort of superficial layer of our
It
branding.
would have been super disastrous if Joe asked that question wrong. They were that close to
world building.
insane disaster.
There are a whole slew of influences when it comes to architecture and character design and world building and natural palette. So it's all a big soup.
Awesome. Let's see. Wrapping up the previous subject, which is like sort of on career play. I know that we've also been exploring internally, doing a lot more tests with mixed crew sizes. We're still thinking about how we want to approach the idea of not just 1vx, but like, are there different crew sizes that we want to support? Like, do we want to do something that's more about solo duo, or things of that sort? We haven't really.
I don't like
landed
the
on a
way you're
discussion
being
point yet.
so
Those are all investigations that we're sort of pursuing,
non-specific
so
there.
Nothing we can commit to there, but we're definitely looking into stuff like that. We're also looking into ways that you can communicate in some way with teams that are not your team. We don't know exactly what feature that could be, but we've been talking a lot about
What
that.
do you mean?
So we're looking into a lot of stuff on that front to sort of improve the overall like sort of social complexity of the game, but also make it better for matchmade crews and also crews of different sizes, whether they be ones, solos, duos, or trios, to find a good experience. So let's see, what is another area that we've been touching on? There's so many things. Oh, progression. Yes. Progression rates in the alpha were way too fast. Everybody went really far, in the alpha in a very short period of time. Some of it was a lot of stuff was being gotten out. Some of it was just our tuning on factions was way too fast. Some of it, I will say that like that's one part of it that was true. Another part of it that was
Money?
true was, what's up?
Money, credits.
Yeah, money, credits, like, yeah, credits and material economy we're thinking about as well. You know, like we want to make sure that credits and materials have really distinct purposes for how you use them, and that you feel the value of using them. Right now, we don't think we landed that super well in the alpha. It was a little bit muddy, and you end up spending a lot less money than you gained. And the credits economy was a little bit more grindy than we intended. There's a lot of things like that we want to
Wait, what?
support. Some of it is rethinking sort of how those things are distributed inside the black market. So different things that you'll buy with each one. Some of it is also, we know that part of our aspiration for the black market is that you are able to upgrade your way into sort of customizing what your black market does for you, gives you reliable ways to build the kit that you want to, especially when you're recovering, or gives you options that actually
Yeah,
continuously
they spent a
help
lot of
you.
time talking about it. They answered a lot of questions.
And that's
super
a little
directly.
hard to do. It's a little hard to target which upgrades you really, really care about right now currently. So we're thinking about how to iterate on that as well. And we're doing some work already to improve that experience. And then lastly, there's like a lot of progression systems that we just simply haven't put in the game yet that we are looking to help sort of like make that journey a little bit more awesome, especially as you go further into it. Things like our archive system, which is a little bit more about achievements and collection stuff that we have.
Trophy stuff.
As well as there's additional other things inside of there, like
Trophies.
factions that you haven't met yet. But yeah, and we're also trying to take all of our factions and give them a slightly more distinct identity against each other. Right now, they read definitely differently from like a lore standpoint, but like how that folds into some of the upgrade systems and some of the contracts they ask you to do is not as distinct. So we're refining that as we go along too. So, yeah, those are a lot of the big beats of what we are tackling. What else was there in that list? I don't remember. Andrew, maybe you do.
I was gonna say it's a good amount.
It's a good amount. Yeah, it's a lot of stuff.
It's a good amount. Like, yeah, I think the overarching deal is like we definitely have gotten like a lot of points to improve on, and we're actively improving on them right now. And like some of our investigations for bigger ones, but I think like in general, the survival game being more robust is a huge one. Feeling more immersed in the world, having the world feel more alive.
Yeah,
you hitting on the fantasy of like being a runner, right? Like in what we call infill, which is like going from matchmaking into boots on the ground, doesn't feel like super great right now. So we're actively working on that. Like, I think there's all the gaps that we heard either from feedback or that, were data that we looked at in the game of like how players resolve things. I think we have a bunch of big improvement points, and we're swinging pretty hard at all of them right now.
Yeah, definitely. I know we've spent a lot of time sort of beginning a lot of the work has already begun, but like sort of also just, talking about all the sort of work we are going to do about tackling a lot of these issues as well.
So that's a good segue into a question from IMTK, who's asked, what's the biggest negative feedback from the alpha that the team is looking to change by release, or at least close to the period after release?
I mean, they're all pretty big points.
They're asking really fucking good questions.
I think the survival stuff, like the run texture and the survival stuff, is probably one of the biggest ones, because we're putting a lot of different points into it. Like we're thinking about how Lars mentioned earlier about how exfilling is different, inside of the game. Like, for example, we might change some of the rules around exfilling and sort of the way it works right now. We're also thinking about everything from AI combatants to resources to loot, all as part of that, So it's a pretty big amount of stuff that we're doing in that space. The other big area I'd say is actually the creative fantasy stuff, which we're really, really trying to land a little bit better, like the immersive fantasy stuff. Wish we could show you some examples, and we definitely will soon, But there's a lot of work we're putting into that too, to make sure that it really feels that it mirrors the intensity of like the experience that we intend on the planet. Like really, a marathon is supposed to be about surviving Tau Ceti and the marathon, ship, and surviving that situation. Right now, it just feels like it's purely about surviving other players, and we want to really make sure that all comes together, both from a creative and gameplay standpoint, in a really impactful way.
That's very true.
Yeah, I'd say the biggest one on combat is just we need to make the game, like, we need to have a lot more options for players to kind of like resolve different scenarios differently, which is a hilarious statement, but like it's like you need to be able to, again, go to the point earlier, like you have to be able to peel off of AI, understand how to fight different AI, different players, how you get out. get more variety in there. And then we did have a lot of good feedback around it requires 2 people to do anything in the game, or 2 or more, and also like how much you're reviving, and like at the time it takes that for them other enemy team or enemy squad to revive, and how long.
Yeah, we didn't even mention that we're revisiting some of the resing stuff, but yeah.
The res stuff. We're changing how that works, so that when you actually do get a pick on an enemy crew, they can't res in the time that it takes you to heal to full, which I think was a kind of a big problem. So we wanted to make sure that you by yourself have more agency and can actually affect more change in the world, but also the world really pushes back a lot more on you. So I think that's probably the biggest trend of feedback on combat that we're actively, tackling from a ton of different angles, like on combatants and on, the runner side and on the weapon side.
I think there's a lot of good changes here, but they're being
I got a question
super vague
from
with a lot of it.
No, go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, I was saying from the art side, it's focusing on immersion and sort of divided into fidelity, sort of the technical side of our visual world, and then it's the sort of narrative. It's supporting the narrative of the runner fantasy, which there's a lot of work to do, and those are the 2 biggest takeaways for us from the art side.
I think they mean character customization aesthetically.
There's another question, Cosmo, you said?
That's how that reads to me. I don't know why they're being so...
Yeah, so I got a question from Curiosity. It says, going forward, will we see more ways to customize and visualize, represent ourselves as players within the runner? This being one of my main questions for both gameplay and immersion.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think we are going to be doing a little bit more. Like, I know Andrew's team has been working on skin work for a while, in terms of just thinking about how to, like, give you visual options to express yourself. We're not going to talk super deep about it because we're still in the process of figuring a lot of those pieces out. But is there anything you want to share on that front, Andrew?
Yeah, we were looking at different, ways for their, the runners to be customized, both gameplay-wise and also in terms of their visual sets.
Gameplay-wise,
we're also looking at. We're also making weapon stuff too to express your weapons and stuff, different ways and multiple ways, not just one.
That did trigger something that I think we forgot to talk about that we want to talk about was build crafting. How we're like sort of thinking a little bit more about how we want to make more distinct build crafting elements.
Yeah, we're tackling build crafting improvements in 2 vectors. One, the runner team is really figuring that out right now. They have some really good ideas. We're trying to basically learn from what we had in the alpha and then extend it in terms of like implants being a bit more interesting and kind of cores having a lot of the interest that people were kind of chasing. And so we're looking at how we can get plus up implants a bit more so they stand up better alongside the cores. And then on weapons, we had perks only in like the upper tiers of attachments, like on purple attachments and stuff like that. So you'd have like, a purple magazine that had a perk on it, or a purple barrel that had a perk. We're taking
Josh,
a lot of the perks and putting them into the chip
destination for
attachment
was content complete. That is a very
and so,
big difference.
They're not divided by the
Very
weapon
big
or the
difference.
weapon family anymore. Like the chips are generic, and so if you find a chip, you can put on any gun.
So it gives you more like an anchoring element then, like this like verb that you can throw on a thing and then.
Yeah, and there's more chips at like lower rarities too. So we're really looking at how we can get more of that build crafting into the weapons versus like you need a specific thing, and there being more considerations for what verb you want to add to the gun overall.
Yeah.
So that's a big push that we're doing right now.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean,
So I got a
from an
question
art
from
side,
Ethan.
I'm super excited about the whole cosmetic side, the fashion game that we're gonna deliver. Our base characters have such a unique look and sort of specific to our visual world that it's a question we've gotten a lot about. What kind of range, what kind of aesthetic or visual range do these runners support? And their answer is all of them. So, yeah, we're very excited to start rolling out looks and sort of ways for players to identify more specifically with certain runners or styles or fashions.
Cool. Cosmo?
So I got a question from Ethan. Has the team reconsidered its stance on proximity chat or exploring other ways to encourage more emergent social interactions between rival players and squads?
Cosmo's my fucking
Yeah, I think
goat.
that's one of the areas that we're still brainstorming around. Is like, how do you use Signal to other people? Like, the classic friendly. Like what's our version of that? Or is there a way that you can use those things in interesting ways between groups right now? We don't have a solution to it just yet, but we are talking through it right now. Yeah.
Not happy with that answer.
All right, I got a question from Agent. Says, would love to hear about the materials for each faction. I feel like there's way too many faction materials and it's insanely overwhelming.
The materials for each faction. Oh, you mean for the upgrades?
That's kind of based.
The upgrades and stuff like that.
Right,
Kind of
right,
based
right.
in real and true.
I think right now we're talking about the materials economy a little bit. How it all aligns to different things. There's a couple things that I think we've learned from Alpha. One is that we want more materials that are kind of like a little bit more memorable and evocative, like we said. We think we like things like tick milk inside of there because it just kind of has this like interesting, evocative, but you kind of question what it's about. So the creative
I'm pretty
theming
sure
of
there are
some of the
legal
materials
reasons
we're
beyond
taking a
proc
second
chat. I
pass at,
don't
but
know why they aren't allowed to say
But the
that.
other part of it is there is a lot of materials and they're all like sort of value graded, like in terms of thinking about, like greens, blues, and purples and stuff like that. I try to make it a little bit easier for you to understand the value of a material, as it sort of is used across different things between like sort of recipes for trading versus upgrades and things of that sort. It's like a sort of a top-down, how do we use materials kind of thing that we're looking into. We do think that it's less about how many materials as opposed to it being clear how they're used, and I think because part of it is that we do want there to be a big diversity of different types of things that you want to loot, but it's about you associating it with the value that you're going to be getting from it. That's super important, and I think that we're still a little loose on that, and we're trying to tighten that up more. Yeah.
I didn't even consider
It is a big pass on.
I've heard it might be an EU thing.
relatability and stuff like that.
Relatability,
well.
Which is we actually had a pass in, not for this build that everyone played, but the current build that we're in. And there's a bit more, I would say, theming, like in terms of what goes where and like what things that would go with weapon upgrades, and you'd be like, okay, like I kind of understand that. And so there's a lot of theming discussions, a lot of relatability discussions. We're still iterating on the look sets of them as well, how they sit in the environment. We're still looking at the looting moment as well. So when you open a container, that it feels really good right now. It kind of feels like this like pop in. I know that like some folks feel like that it kind of like the pop in feels like, or the pop in of the loot when you're going through a container. The searching essentially is what it is.
Yeah.
It feels a little bit like, your internet is slow or something. And so we're really trying to make it feel like it's like you're actually
first time I
searching
played, I
through,
thought it
and
was a
that
bug.
feeling really rewarding when you find something in there, whether it's a
I was like,
material
why is
or
this
valuable or
why
something
is this
else.
rendering so slowly?
So yeah, I think that we're looking at the organization of the materials, what they are, what they're used for, and then understanding when you find a specific one, you're like, oh yes. The other thing, it's probably, I mean, we haven't had a question about it yet, but I feel like we should talk about it, is bag space and all that kind of good stuff, right, Joe?
Like in terms of like thinking about, we've definitely gone back and forth on a lot of things, including around backspace, which is like we want you to feel the tension of obviously what you pick up and how much of it you pick up, right? But we also want you to like think more about what, like right now, for example, I would say our looting is very much based on sort of stack value in a size, where it's like, oh, we have a lot of things that accomplish. It's like how much value do you get stacking something inside of a specific slot as opposed to getting a variety of different types of values out of things, It's something we've been talking a lot about. And yeah, we might be changing some icon sizes or things like that in the future, or like basically some of the sizing of different types of things inside of your bag just to make it the puzzle a little bit better. But there's a lot of iterations we're going to do on that front. We are going to make it probably a little bit rarer for you to find bags, but we're going to try to make it easier for you to like reliably get them from the black market and things of that sort. So we're shifting some of those equations around.
Yeah, base bag space is always the topic of conversation.
Base bag
space is always the big discussion.
I think we're still talking about base bag space. Like basically the thing is we don't want you to not feel like you want to get a bag. Right? Like I think it's like it's weird if you always feel like you have enough space and you don't need a bag. But I do think that we're still one, like we still want to make sure that tension feels right. Yeah. But yeah.
So I got a question from Zionless. It says, is there plans to add guaranteed ways to build craft? I heard lots about build crafting, but not being able to get a loadout I designed without hopefully randomly stumbling upon it sounds bad. I would like to see crafting system
really good
or
question.
at least have the option to change cores with some material expenses.
I think we're trying to make the lower level of build, like the baselining of
You never
build
found a bag in 10
crafting,
hours
something
of the
that you
raid?
can
They come from
establish
servers.
through your black market a little bit easier, you know, like acquire and build in that way. But but there's always going to be like a difference when it comes to high rarity things. High rarity things, like for example, there will be builds that involved having a really rare item
your
that
name's
may
literally
not
Fat Juicy Waffle.
be
Like,
something
come
you can
on.
always have.
You're
but
not a
like
serious
we
person,
want you to
dog.
get more involved at the lower level of build crafting where you feel like
Also
you can
not
actually
as good
kinda
as your
do that
ROMs.
kind of thing. But yeah, Andrew, I know you.
I think we agree with the statement that was in the question, which is like it feels hard to maintain like a build, and we need to. We're looking through a bunch of ways, through black market or like through bartering or something like that to
Exactly.
kind of like be able to get the right verbs. Maybe it's not the same thing that you want because we still want you to kind of go and loot things, but we want to have you have verbs that you're like, I like when I'm playing glitch and like this is like the overall verb set I would like for the glitch, and you having more opportunity to be able to go back to that well versus like, oh, though my access to the well is purely based
I'm
off of
kinda
the
confused what they
randomness
mean by
of the
this.
container.
I think that's it. I think it's like if you think of like if the like lower level version of it, the middle version of it, and the perfect version of it, right? We want you to have access to like the lower or middle version, depending on how you've like done that. But the perfect version of it, I think some pieces will still be things that if you lose them, you'll have to find them again. Right? Yeah.
So Drifter wants to know, is there any discussion on reworking the resurrection of dead teammates system? Would like to see this addressed before launch, as rezzing dead bodies seems free,
Asmon has
is
50K,
bad for the tempo of the
56K
game.
viewers.
We
I
concur. Yep, I'll just
I've
jump
been
in
watching the
and
stream.
say yes, we
talked a lot
concur.
about it,
Yes, we concur. Whereas about a bunch of work is going into it right now. We basically have
you might think it's absurd.
our kind of one axis of a solve we have for right now is increasing the resurrection time and also having it so that every time you go down, the timer does get increased. And so if you keep on going down, like you kind of like your ability to come back into, back from the abyss is harder and harder. We're also looking at, we also did a bunch of changes in the alpha around like the timer, a saved progress timer. So when alpha first came out, it saved your progress the entire time, and so you could like get to halfway, take a fight, and then go back and kind of just pay for the half of the res timer. We did have a reaggressive decay on that, so it goes down. And we're looking at other things too. That if that's not enough, we definitely know that. Rezzing feels a bit too free. We're also taking a look at the messaging. I know that there's the little stick figure above the bags and stuff that we adorably call the little gentleman above the bags. We're looking at that actually being a tell, so you can't just like camp the bags the entire time. We liked the texture of being able to know whether or not like a crew was downed and like making combat decisions as a crew about that, so you can kind of like coalesce around the information. But I think we're seeing that once you give too much information, obviously like it just like you can have too much action in terms of what to do and where like you can stay in the area knowing that there might be like a clutch play happening or something. So I would say we agree with the baseline is that rezzing is too free. And we're not looking for just purely punishments where if you do get fully dead, like you feel like coming back and being alive is like not worth the time. That's definitely something we don't want to do, and so we're trying to make it so that there is a thing for continuously dying, and then rezzing does feel really clutch when you do it, but it's not a guaranteed thing.
I know we've talked about it, but I think the sort of place we're trying to land ultimately is that if a person gets downed, rezzing them, like not downed, but like not completely eliminated, but like downed, right? Like knocked down, rezzing them in combat is hard, but it's doable. And if they get eliminated, getting them out, like rezzing them in combat is really, really, really like very almost difficult to do, right? You really want to do it once you've cleared the area. Is that the intent?
Yeah, we want it to be that like doing it in a fight is not as you don't want to take that on as often as you did in the alpha. Like I think that's something we're seeing is that like you saw folks in the middle of a fight, go in the back and like res
just
somebody,
res
and then
yeah.
like now it's like the numbers game of it's like
that
okay, it's
shouldn't be hot
2v3,
takes
okay, now
on
it's
with.
3v3, okay, now it's 2v2, now it's 1v2, okay, now it's
Yeah.
3v2, and so yeah, we're definitely working on that, and so not that we definitely don't want it to like remove it from the game entirely, because we do think that it gives a bit more of that social texture to the crew play, or even like if you're playing, you know, whether a duo or a trio or something, but we definitely don't want to make it like the obvious choice where we want death to matter, and I think that there's a feeling I think we got in feedback where death does not feel like it matters.
Yeah.
So I've seen a lot of questions in chat about like, where are the aliens? And there's another question. It's like, where is the 4? Are they coming? You want to speak to any of it?
Please.
I mean, we have plans for like a lot of alien stuff coming in the future, you know, that we don't really want to talk about. There is some other stuff that has to do with like the 4. We have a touch of it already that we have in testing, you know, but I can't. But I don't know if we're ready to talk about all those plans yet. I mean, like it's content, but it's not kind of we're ready to show yet, if that makes sense. But
Yeah, part of like part of the baseline of Marathon right now is the table stakes of the universe, right?
Yeah.
And then we're trying to build, but not like build in like a forever way, but like build aggressively.
When they say plans, they're being careful.
The alien friction that I think everyone's kind of like leaning at and kind of like, you know,
it's hard because they
towards,
want
like,
this to be a community-driven natural experience.
But we're
so
trying
they don't
to
want to show
get
it,
there
and I
in a way
really
where we get the
empathize with
table
that.
stakes, and then you know we
I
we
really
go from there.
empathize
Even some of
with
our
that.
weapons. I know that there was some folks that were just like, where's the 4
The
rifle,
plan-
right?
the
Where's the
plan
giant
for-
pink 4 rifle from the first Marathon?
This stuff is
game?
not going to be
And,
in the base game. It's
we're
going to be
setting
season
the
2,
baseline,
season 3, season 4
but that
shit.
doesn't mean
For
that
sure.
we're not invested there or anything. It doesn't. It just means that this is the baseline of where we're going to get to.
They want to
we're
introduce the
definitely
universe,
conscious
and
of
then the universe is going to pop off. I don't think they're
starting
doing
from
a
a
good way of
place that we
explaining
can
that.
grow and get crazier from here. And if you start
well.
at full volume, you know, there's kind of no place to go. You're going to get to the ceiling and you crush up against the ceiling pretty fast.
Well, never mind.
But that doesn't mean we're not invested in those areas. I think
Okay,
we're pretty
well.
heavily invested.
yeah, I mean,
and
like ultimately,
that was a good way of
we're
saying
at the
that,
start of the
actually.
journey that we hope Marathon is taking towards, you know, telling a much bigger story, you know, but you want to start at a place that makes sense.
Yeah, there was a really great conversation yesterday about something in this vein, and the excitement was very high in the room about it. So,
Yeah.
if you like aliens and mystery, I think we're actively having good conversations about that.
The Marathon ship is literally in the game, Jonathan. There are things that...
I feel like we say we talk a lot on here. We have conversations about. There's things we're building. I guess I
Yeah,
want to say.
there are things we're building. There's things we talk about with the goal of building, and then things we talk about knowing we will be building them even further in the future, and all those things are true. Yeah.
It's like what do we do?
All right, got time for one more question. Are there any plans to expand the verticality of the early game maps by increasing their depth and complexity? For example, by adding
This is
more
about
underground
not over-delivering.
locations
This
that could
is
be
how
unlocked
they're
through
telling the
collective community
story.
progress or
They're
completing
just
some
not
kind of
they're not
raid-like
explaining
mechanic?
this well.
We've talked about how we use we're probably going to be shifting around how we use some of the existing spaces, to be fair, like in terms of thinking about how we're going to add more complexity in ways that we approach those maps, right, Lars? Like in terms of thinking about it, but like
We'll have
I know
a
we've
good
talked about
discussion after
how-
this, because I want to
as
address
a-
this. This is a combination of
as
bad
like a
marketing and also
live
the
game,
community
we want
being
to
like,
continuously
you know.
sort of like add to these maps and think about them in the future. But
no,
yeah. Lars, I
not
know
good
you
at
guys have talked
understanding.
about
Yeah, I think. Yeah, I think that's
There's
a good way to think
there's
about
a
it.
little
where
bit-
you were just
there's a
talking
lot of
about
fault,
the,
I think,
you
on
know,
both
the
sides.
alien stuff and how we started the
But we'll talk about
baseline. I
it.
think the maps, we think about it in the same way, and obviously, you know, there were some nooks and crannies in the maps that were in the alpha, and it obviously wasn't all of the content we plan to have when the game comes out. And so, but yeah, we see it as, again, creating like this really satisfying baseline and then looking for room to grow and how we increase that complexity over time. And I would say some of the maps, the newer maps that we're working on right now, take that into account even more so than perimeter and marsh. Even though we had a lot of those conversations early on about perimeter and marsh as well, and then which saw things like the underground sort of gold locked room that was underneath AI Plank, or the sort of twisty and turny tunnels that are underneath bio research. And so again, I think it's like starting at the baseline and then figuring out the right things to add and thinking about that approach from first principles going forward too.
All right, Joe, do you want to close us out with anything?
Yeah, once again, I want to appreciate everybody for like sort of not just joining us here, but also whoever participated in the alpha or whoever was part of watching it or just even part of the discourse. We really appreciate it. You know, we're really like excited that a lot of people are interested in sort of seeing where we evolve this game and sort of how we're continuing to iterate on it and make it better. So thank you all for the feedback. Thank you all for the questions. Thank you all for the sort of support and for sharing your feedback and opinions with us. It's all super valuable, and we've been listening. We're like constantly talking about how to tackle it. We're doing a lot of things already to tackle it. We're sorry we couldn't show anything this week. Unexpected conditions came up, but next time we want to be showing you a little bit more
When is
about
next
what
time?
we're working on, and hopefully that'll be exciting to see. But yeah, thank you all very much. Look forward to talking to you again soon. Yeah.
When is soon?
Thank you.
Okay. So I think there were good things there. I think there were a lot of bad things there. Or maybe there were there was a lot of vague stuff. So I don't even know the best way. What do I put in the background to talk about this? I don't even fucking know. Fuck it. You get my desktop. So their plan and like they're doing such a bad job explaining this, and I just don't know if I'm too close or what. I have no idea. Yeah, they said specifically no gameplay this time because they didn't want to show any of the stolen assets. So I do have to give them a little bit of, I think we have to, I think that was the right way to handle it. I think if they delay the stream, I think that gets way bastardized by the community. I think if they show gameplay and they accidentally show the stolen assets, I think that is also very bad. This was probably the best thing they could have done, to be honest. The structure of the game, it is a live service, okay? It is a live service game. This is kind of the equivalent if Destiny 1 launched with Oryx already in the game. Or the Taken already in the game. Do you understand? That's sort of how they are approaching or trying not to approach the 4 and alien stuff. There is definitely stuff that hints towards it as they said it, and there are things that you've I think I'm allowed to talk about it. It's fine. There is stuff there. There's absolutely stuff there. It is not as much as I would like, personally, from what I've seen, but there is stuff there that is going to, so will the stream be long enough to get that point? I don't fucking know. I have literally no idea. It seems like Destiny launching without the phone or the Hive before, like the entire OG game. Yes, but keep in mind the story that they are telling is they received a distress call from the marathon and no one knows what's going on. So our people, it's not like we know the 4 exist and we're just not exploring them. In the version of the story they are telling, we spend 80 years or whatever on the reconciliation. Is that what it's called? What's the new ship called? Chat? Something like that. It's some word like that. And we spend 80, 90 years getting here. And we arrive. Everything's fucking dead. The distress call's still going off. USEC arrived slightly before us. And now no one knows what's going on. So, part of the story is season 1 is almost certainly, we know it's called, no, it's not Lollipop. Season 1, we know it's called A New Gold Rush or something, is clearly going to be centered around the fact that, hey, we arrive in this universe, or in this solar system, and there's a bunch of new tech and there's a bunch of new shit, and no one knows what the fuck's going on, but we're all trying to solve it. Street Shadow, sorry. Thank you for the super chat. I have hope for Marathon. People care enough to give feedback. My question is, will Sony give them the space to get to season 2 or 3? I would be shocked if Sony doesn't give them at least a year, but I don't know. Doing stuff in that season 1, community events, the puzzles, the marathon ship thing, map, all that stuff, is going to, I assume, from everything I've heard and seen, lead us into that larger story kind of exploding, where it's like, oh shit, there's like other shit going on. That is sort of the dreadnought arriving in our solar system moment. I think that's how I think they are approaching this. I've not had that confirmed. I don't know what the seasonal fucking story arcs are planned. I don't even know how far they've planned. I don't know. That is the vibe I get based off of what I know about those puzzles and everything. So this is like, if we started Destiny 1 with the Taken here, and so you play the whole Black Heart, and then it's Taken and then it's Orcs, none of that hits as hard, right? Like the live service element of it helps progress that story. If done correctly, it can be done in a really enticing way. And so that's the main thing I'm kind of excited about, because I feel like personally, it's been a very long time since in Destiny I have felt that. Where it's like, oh, we're getting new stuff, and hopefully I feel that again with edging defeat. But when's the last time there was like anticipation for something arriving in Destiny, like literally Season of Arrivals, where you could see, or Season of the Worthy, where you can see the pyramid ships getting closer every week, stuff like that. Like that sort of thing doesn't really exist anymore. There's not really, we just know everything that's fucking happening in Destiny. You know, we're just experiencing stories that we know are already coming, and that's been literally the case for the last, or maybe I would say actually the big like mic drop moment for Destiny for me was actually probably Witch Queen, and the Hive Guardians. I don't think it works though, because we as players already know about the 4 in this fit. It's weird because some of us do. I would assume that the majority of the player base for the alpha, or people that are watching the stream, could not tell me the difference between a 4 or a fit. They couldn't tell me what a compiler is. They couldn't tell me about the Svet Cur. I guarantee even less people know what a working calculator is. So I think like, no, I think they're kind of playing it in a way where they assume most of the community doesn't know what a lot of this shit is. So look, I don't think they're teasing this out well. And I do think they address this at the end. And I feel like they're so close to realizing it, where they're like, oh, we're talking like we're only thinking about things. And then they're like, oh, but we're working on stuff too. Talk about that. Stop doing the other stuff. And it's kind of like, you know, it's hard because, you know, they couldn't show any gameplay today, but I want to hear more about the stuff you're actually doing. Show me some of the art changes you think you're going to be doing, which hopefully the next stream isn't too far away and they're going to do that. The procs chat thing where they're like, oh yeah, we're talking about how we can do that. Like, just be honest, man. Why are we not? Is it a legal thing? Is it not a legal thing? But if it's, I just don't even know. If it's not a legal thing, I don't know. Like I've talked to other creators at the events and stuff, and they seemed to think it was a legal thing, or they had gotten information that it was a legal thing potentially, and that's where that information comes from. I have no way of verifying that. But if it's not that, talking about stuff isn't even marketing. It's educating a very small portion of potential players. Yeah. I said this earlier. Like every piece of their marketing just feels off. It feels low budget, and it feels not thought out. It's fucking crazy because original Vidoc, controversy aside, like really good. Original ARG, really fucking good. Second ARG, really good. It's like that meme where it's like the fucking the flaming horse, and then the drawing gets worse or whatever. It's like flaming horse, flaming horse, flaming horse, and then like not, you know. And I don't understand, like, why do they keep doing this? Could they not get Lars and Andrew a camera? Yeah, I don't fucking know, man. Judson, Arc Raiders live service game 2 as proximity chat. Is Arc Raiders rated R? It's also in a different country. That might change things. I don't know who Embark Studios' parent company is. That might change things. I don't know. I have no idea. And larger maps, and have a night map. I haven't really heard any complaints about the map size in Marathon. I think too much larger and it would be kind of annoying, to be honest. But the Marathon maps also have dynamic daytime, so I'm not sure what that was. I don't make excuses for Bungie. My objective is not to make excuses. It is to understand decisions. Being blatantly or like blindly mad at something without trying to understand the reason why something is happening is a dumb thing. It's just a dumb thing to do. Talking about it on Twitter with Gene, but yeah, he thinks ProcShot might be a Sony PlayStation thing. He agrees. Gene. Nexon is the majority holder of Embark. Well, okay. They own half of fucking everything anyway, so. And once again, Nexon is absolutely not a U.S. company. Why'd that stream go ahead? They should have just canceled. Because if they canceled it, they would get absolutely flamed for it. If Marathon flops, would that be a good thing or a bad thing for Destiny? I would think that's an objectively bad thing for Destiny. And for obviously Bungie as a whole. But I think that is, as far as I can tell, a very bad thing for Destiny. And the stream was already delayed before. Yeah, that's a good point. Oh, Gene Park. I know Gene Park. There has to be some safety compliance policy or standard they're worried about. Yeah. Does he go into this? Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm just telling you like the rumors I've heard and shit. Like that's all I've got for you guys. I don't know. I don't know, man. Yeah, it was a lose-lose situation today. Look, I'm glad they addressed the art stuff. I'm questioning whether acknowledging like a potential job offer or contract for Anti-Real. I think that might be a little bit of a mistake because I think it is. And people aren't going to see it. This is a very personal thing. But I just know I wouldn't want Bungie to say, oh, yeah, we've talked to Scarrow about potentially working for... Like, I wouldn't want that to be made public. I think that's a thing that probably shouldn't be made public until Anti-Real feels... Or I guess both parties feel that is appropriate. But if that is something that is going to be offered or has been offered or, you know, a possibility, I just don't think you need... Like, who the fuck cares what Twitter thinks? Like, we shouldn't be any part of that discussion. That's none of our goddamn business. That job offer contract statement seemed like PR statement only, not a sincere statement. If they say something like that, if they say, oh, we're going to offer her a job, or we're going to, and then they don't, then that looks worse. That is the worst PR statement they could put. I do not believe that at all. What's up, E? How you doing, buddy? I just I feel like people do this a lot with Bungie where they're like, oh, they just said that. Like, same thing, you saw it with the Right of the Nine thing. Oh, they just blatantly lied to us in the live stream about the rotation. So they trick us and get playtime numbers. A, that would only work for a single Tuesday. And B, you don't think they would know where we'd be fucking furious? Like, it's so, because people, like, I talked about this yesterday, and I don't know, I need a better way of conveying this sentiment. But people simultaneously treat Bungie like they're the most smart, like, evil genius schemers ever, and also, like, the biggest dumbasses ever. And it's like, you can't have it both ways, man. If they know, like, it's conspiracy brain. Yeah, it is conspiracy brain. It is. But the problem is when you point that out, people are like, "Oh, you're defending." It's like I'm not defending them. It can be bad and you can be stupid at the same time. Those are not mutually exclusive. That's just where I am with this shit. It's hard though. Artist cooked anyway. She said she can't afford a lawyer. Dog, did you see how much support she had yesterday? She could raise legal fees like that. It would be no issue. But Bungie has been very good. Bungie is not Nintendo. Okay? For all of their faults and all of the shitty stuff that has happened at Bungie, as far as we are aware, these situations tend to be resolved in a very positive way. And just specifically with accidental plagiarism or, whatever, however the fuck you want to frame that, tend to resolve themselves in a positive way. Most Critical made a video about the game. Well, that's not the worst thing that could happen, I think, actually. Yo, Street Shadow, thank you for the super chat. Game biz person here. Likely Marathon will be T for teen. Prox chat requires a few legal rules to be met across the world. UK/EU being the most strict. GPDR, COPA come to mind. They can have it set to off opt-in, I think. Yeah, that's kind of the vibe that I've been getting. I'm not a legal expert. I'm not in the space. There are reasons that like games like Call of Duty, typically are M, but also, there are like, okay, for instance, in the plastics industry, when you need to get something approved, there are, let's say like for food contact, there are different rules based off of what type of material it is, if it's related to something that has been previously, approved or whatever. And so it because Destiny doesn't have prox chat or whatever, Bungie's never worked on this before, I imagine it is even more complex of a problem to solve just because they don't have that history there. But I don't fucking know. I hate talking about shit like this because I have no fucking idea. And then I'm going to say something, someone's going to clip it, and they're going to be, let's Scarrow said. And then and then we're done. You know what I mean? Then why can't they just outright say it's a legal issue? I don't know, man. I've got nothing. I've got nothing, man. Bungie has fire team chat, so you can't say they haven't considered it in the past. There's fire team chat in Marathon. That literally exists. That exists in game. I've used it extensively. Everything that you hear us talking in the trailer where we're playing, it's using in-game chat. But there's a big difference between talking to your own team and talking to enemy teams. If Call of Duty can have those super toxic pregame lobbies without issues, Call of Duty's are if this is an issue with rating, all Call of Duty games for the past 20 years have been rated M. And once again, like, I don't know, some people seem to think it's a Sony issue. Like, I don't fucking know, man. I have no idea. Sony might require it to be teen. I don't know. Right, so how exactly is ProgShot different? Dog, I don't fucking know. Laws are stupid. I've got nothing here. I have a bunch of rumors from a bunch of people who are related to the industry. That's all I got. I don't know what anyone else wants from me. I'm not going to sit here and give you definitive answers I don't believe in or know about. Like, it's just not going to happen. I'm the wrong person for that. Judson, thank you for the super chat. Bungie made proximity chat popular in Halo days. Yeah, rules have changed a lot since Halo. Like, I got nothing, man. Joseph Cross looked like he was genuinely apologetic. He seems like a good guy. Like I said, like, I don't know him, but anyone who's in that position, like, they're gonna feel bad for shit like that. Like, I can't. It bugs me, and this is such a hard thing to convey, because I'm in a very privileged position where I have gotten to meet a lot and talk to a lot of the small guy devs, the regular, you know, gamers who followed their passions and got a career. Not the executives, not the C-suite, not fucking leadership. I've gotten to talk to, like, literally 100 different Bungie devs at this point. Just regular ass normie fucking people that are working on the game. And every one of them is like a genuinely great person from what I can tell. And it really just sucks so much. And I just don't know how to convey it without being a shill. I don't know how to convey it, that it is so much different to hate on the brand of Bungie or the leadership decisions at Bungie or whatever, versus, like, hating on, like, the specific devs, like the individual people that are just there to make a living and do what they're passionate about. It is so different, and I just feel bad about when I have, like, friends that are looped into this, like, oh, Bungie fucking sucks. And it's like, imagine if McDonald's stole an aesthetic and then you went to your local McDonald's and you, like, spit in the cashier's face. That's, like, not productive or at all helping anything. Except for that one guy. Yeah, except for the one guy. And so it's just like, I don't know how to convey that. And most of you aren't going to realize that. And you have no reason to, like, because you've never talked to him. I'm not going to hate on a random Dave named Carl. It's a shame management put them there. Yeah, exactly. But, like, most of Twitter does fucking hate Carl, dude. And I just don't think it's fair, man. Like, Tesla owners getting their cars vandalized? Well, they kind of had that coming. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, it's sort of like that. Yeah, sure. That's a little different. But just because you don't work for Tesla if you own a Tesla. But it's just not, like, people are passionate about things. You think, like, fucking think every single person that like works at Dow DuPont is responsible for, like, poisoning the world and adding PFAS to your blood? Like, no. That's like a group of a couple of scientists that, for whatever reason, after things were discovered, didn't report that properly, and then, like, legions of executives and lawyers who decided to hide that from the public, right? But, like, fucking the lab technician at Dow DuPont isn't a bad person. They're just making a living. And it's the same fucking thing. Like, how do you say that? How do you say that without being a fucking dick rider, blah, blah, blah? It's like, dog, they're just fucking people. Like, I know you guys, like people who are doing this, like, I know they work at, like, fucking Tim Hortons or something, but if Tim Hortons ever does anything bad, I hope someone doesn't come and shoot you. You know what I mean? Like, you are not responsible for your employee, excuse me. It's just like, fuck? DuPont is definitely responsible for forever chemicals. Dog, are you even listening to what I'm saying, Sai? I just don't. That's what I just said! That's what I just said! Sometimes I feel like I consumed copious amounts of leaded gasoline as a child, and I just live in a different, perception is reality. I just feel like, oh, dude, I must just have brain damage, and like everyone else just must be right, and I'm just an idiot, and I fucking just consumed too much tetraethyl lead, and it's just over for me. It's just over. And I think I'm communicating correctly, and I think I'm saying words that make sense, but actually I'm just not. And I just feel like life would be so much easier if I was stupid. Like, fuck, I don't even know, man. Really makes you question your life choices. Why isn't Abontis a VIP? Can I do that? VIP Abontis. There you go. Yeah. Trying to get movie of the week emblem? Yes, Bog. Actually, yes. Hoon and I were looking for a third. Do you wanna learn speedruns? I don't know how much time I have tonight, because Victoria and I do date nights on Friday, but I'm like, what do you mean no, man? What do you mean no, man? Do you only need one? Are you doing it with sweat right now? I don't know any of the steps currently. Huh. Real talk though, thank you for being such a measured voice. It's like, I just don't even think it's worth it, man. I don't even know. I've been talking about this a lot recently. I need a therapist or something. My mental has been so fucking trash for the last 2 months. 2 months, I just don't even know. I just can't. I need to disconnect. I don't even know. You send me a meme? Okay, lad. I'll check your fucking meme, dude. Oh no, what is this? What the fuck is this, lab? Do I want to watch this?
Reducing what's called like first sighted, which is like they look at you and they're like you, and then they get into combat with you, and then they take some shots. We want them to be more stand their ground robots and hit that killer mecha infantry fantasy.
No! Fuck! No! 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 No, man! No! No! God damn it! I don't know, man. I do need a vacation. I do need a vacation. Dado does therapy where he walks content creators through the struggle. Wait, does he actually? Oh my god, I'd sign up for Dado therapy so fucking fast. Alright, dude. Ah, man. Ah. It's hard, but we're taking a couple-day trip next week, actually. But it's hard because it's a hard thing, this not being my job, because all my PTO goes to fucking other shit. And it's like, yeah, I really appreciate, stuff, but fuck me, dude. There's a big difference between, like, a relaxing vacation in GCX or a fucking relaxing vacation or working, essentially, recording footage at Bungie and stuff. Like, I appreciate all these opportunities so much, but fuck me, dude. I'm getting too old for this shit. It's okay! I'll just bitch about things, be called the Bungie shill, and then fucking die one day. I'm just killing time until I die. Might as well get traumatic brain injuries while I'm at it, right? That's where I'm at. Alright, well, it's been 2 hours. It's date night. Tomorrow is our 6-year anniversary. So we're going to a nearby town and we're eating at a fancy food place. Whatever those are called, restaurants. There should be a stream tomorrow, though. I do want to... Hoon and I really want to do... Shrimp, you should do speeds with us. Shrimp, do you work this weekend? You should do speeds with us. I know you're fucking locked in. I know you're fucking locked in. Shrimp, Hoon and I are gonna do Spire speeds at some point. So we'll work that out. You and Acid are going on a trip at the same time? Yeah, we're going on a couples fucking cruise together. It's gonna be sick. Dado therapy? Dude, Toes, we should talk to Dado about starting a therapy series. That would actually be sick. That would actually be sick. So. Hard to defend plagiarism being a Bungie shill? Bug. I mean, I know that's a joke, but fuck me. It actually makes me so angry. It, like, physically makes me so angry that anyone thinks I would side with Bungie on this. And I know it's just like fucking dickhead idiots on Twitter, but fuck, man. Like, I've spent a decade being, I think, a fairly progressive voice in this community, advocating for, the marginalized and the fucking workers' rights and advocating or being very outspoken against things like layoffs and corporate consolidations. You know how much money I lost by not streaming on Twitch for fucking 10 years? Like, fuck, man. It's like, none of it matters. It doesn't even matter, dude. At the end of the day, none of it matters. Does Dado support imaginary health insurance? Hopefully. Hopefully, dude. Is a picture of burnout? I think so. It's weird because I've never experienced it. And I think I genuinely might be. But I don't know. But I don't know. It's fine. It's whatever, dude. Why didn't you stream on Twitch before? Because Amazon's a fucking shit company, dude. And I hate supporting them. Genuinely. And the only reason I'm on this website is because I think it is genuinely selfish for me to ask you to watch on a site where there's no drops and the user experience is worse and all of this shit. And I finally came to terms with that. It's like, okay, am I gonna moral grandstand this, or I'm gonna actually, the people I actually care about, am I gonna make sure they have a good, worthwhile experience? And that's where I am. But it just sucks, dude. I gotta stop. I just gotta stop. All right, boys and gals. Thank you so much. Sorry for bitching at the end here. This isn't, I mean, you guys don't sign up for a therapy session. That's my bad. Send me all your PayPals. I'll pay you for being my therapist for a little bit. Yep. Probably stream tomorrow while we learn speeds. We'll see. I don't know. But I'll let you... YouTube is owned by Google, though, so which is better or worse? I think, like, anywhere you slice it, Google is, like, way better, personally, on many, many issues. That does not mean Google is perfect. Do not twist my words. But I think they are better. But yeah, everyone have a great night.